Today we'll be talking about your feet and how you can use them to unlock your true strength for powerlifting and how you can get more stable for the squat, bench press and deadlift. So send me over your foot pics and we can start with this tutorial. So when it comes to powerlifting technique, everybody likes to think about the big points, how you can use your quads, how you can get more upper back tension. But there is one point about technique that not everybody, but most athletes like to forget, and it's your feet. This is where everything begins for lifting. And today I will be showing you how to actually use your feet correctly to unlock your true potential. And today I will be showing you how to use your feet correctly to lift as much weight as possible, feel more stable and more safe during the big 3 lifts. So we're going to split this video in 3 parts. The first part will be the squat, the second part will be the bench press, and the third part will be the deadlift. You'll see that there are very similar points for each lift, but I will try to explain as in depth as possible how important the feet are and how you can use them to feel more stable and really make your technique click. So in general, the way you put pressure on your foot dictates on what muscles you use during lifting. In general, when you put more pressure on your toes, you can get your quads more into the movement. If you put more pressure on the outer part of your foot, you can get a little bit more glute engagement. And if you put too much pressure on your heels, you are basically going too much on the low back, maybe hamstring area. And this is how I like to think about it when I'm lifting and how I like to teach foot pressure to my athletes. So toes, quads, side, glutes, heel, maybe low back, maybe more posterior chain. So the feet are basically the base of your technique when you are squatting. And if you have a very unstable base, then everything else in your technique from bottom to the top falls apart. So what you want to do is you want to build a solid base. You may be asking yourself how you can do that. That's pretty simple. We can do it by building something that's called the foot tripod. And basically that is a 3-point contact from the feet with the floor. And this will also help you if your heels are lifting off the floor or if your feet are caving inwards when you're squatting. So these techniques I'm about to show you today and these exercises are also good for athletes that have flat feet. And you basically can train your feet up to a specific point, of course, to build a little bit more arch. And you can also build instantaneously more arch if you do this correctly. So the first thing you can do to build your foot tripod, let me take my feet out. Don't take any pictures. So people who have flat feet, you can see that this part of their foot touches the floor. What we want to do is to build the foot arch. And you can see that there's basically an arch right here. And this will distribute the pressure in your feet differently. It will spread it out more evenly. So with flat feet, you basically move the pressure right here, this part, and this will cause your knees to cave in during the squat. By building the foot arch, you will help your feet be more stable, your knees will be more stable, and they will be able to track over your toes, and they will not cave in as much, and you'll be able also to engage your glutes, which the glutes are basically the strongest muscles in the body. Don't come after me saying that the jaw muscles are stronger. If the jaw muscles are stronger, they are relatively stronger, but don't come at me with the technicalities. And if the jaw muscles are stronger, lift weights with your jaw muscles. So how do we actually build the foot tripod? What we aim for is to build pressure on the ball of your big toe, the ball of your small toe, and your heel. If you have pressure in these 3 points, you'll be able to have a more stable foot. It won't wiggle around as much, and your knees will be more stable too. So you can build the foot tripod by trying a few things. I will tell you about a few things and you can try them and see which one helps you out the most. The one thing you can try to do is to start by lifting up your toes and then setting your foot on the floor. This will help you increase this arch and shift the pressure more on the outer part of your foot. Then what you want to do is to place down your toe slowly, and then you can maintain this arch. The other thing you can try is during squat is that you try to grab the floor with your feet. And in reality, it's like, let's say you dropped your sock on the floor, you don't want to bend over to lift it up because you're lazy. You can think about doing this and then grabbing the thing off the floor with your foot. This is basically what you have to do during squats. you can put your foot down and then think about grabbing the floor. This will help you also raise your arch. And the other thing you can try is to think about having the 3-point contact right here, maybe pressing your big toe down and then trying to shift the focus or the pressure on the outer part of your sole. And this will help you bring the pressure more into your glutes. So you set your feet, you press your big toe down, and then you twist your foot or you shift the weight on the outer part of your foot, and this will help you have a stable base and you won't move around as much, and your knees will track better and you will engage your glutes better. That's one way to think about it. If you are not sure how you can bring the pressure on the outer part of your foot, you can think about this. Let's say you put a band on the floor and then we spread it out and we step on it on the other side, and you want to basically try to spread the band out like this. And this will bring the pressure on the outer side of your feet. If you can see, when I do this, my arch raises. So that's one way to think about it, and you can set the foot tripod during the squats. So if you're a lifter that basically has too much knee cave or the feet are caving in, the first thing you can try to fix this is to use a mini band. A lot of people, when they have knee cave and an unstable squat, they directly like to think that you have to put the band around the knees to push the knees out. But if you have an unstable base, you won't be able to do that because the problem is down there and not on your knees. So one thing you can try to fix this is to put a band low on your ankles and not around the knees. And then you want to do your squat warm-ups. Let's say you are doing, I don't know, so let's say you are doing your first warm-up. You can do a tempo squat with a light mini band around the ankles, and you think about pushing the outer part of your ankle joint against the band. So if you do that, you can see that my feet arch is lifting up, and then you have more control during a squat. You can add a few tempos right there, and you can do this in your warm-up to start feeling the glutes working, to start feeling the stability in your feet. What's important to remember is that you put your big toe down so that your toes don't lift up and you go too much on your heels. You want to have pressure on your big toe and then push the band out like this and work on a little bit of tempo when you go down in your warm-ups, and this will help you maintain your foot arch and get a little bit more control during squatting. So a problem athletes might be having during the squat is not finding a balance, like I said, and that might look like this. You could either fall forward during the squat or either push the hips back too early and then go on the lower back to lift the weights. So what you can do to fight this is to put a little bit more pressure on your toes while having built the foot tripod we have talked about. So pretty simple to do that. You can basically just, when we are standing in the starting position, to lean slightly forward and then begin your squat from there. This will help you keep the pressure more on your quads and your front foot, and this will also help you maintain the balance as long as you are keeping the foot tripod stable. If you see that if your heels are lifting too much of the floor, you are maybe doing it too much, you just want to lean slightly forward and then begin your squat from there by bending the knees and unlocking the hips at the same time. So like I said, to find your balance for the squat, you have to build the foot tripod regardless, but you can play around with your stance width, whether that is narrower or wider. If you go narrower, you'll have to point the feet forward a little bit more. If you go wider, you'll have to point the feet out a little bit more. You can play around with that to see which stance feels more stable. You have power and you have control. And it also feels more comfortable and you don't get like weird pains when lifting, because mobility is also a factor when choosing your stance width. If you want to check out the full tutorial on squat and see which stance you can pick, check out this video right here. And let's move on to bench. So the next thing about feet is how you can use them for bench press. You might be asking yourself now why feet are important for the bench press. Again, for the bench press, the feet are basically the beginning of your setup and how you can stabilize everything to have a solid base to push from. A common mistake for the bench press is either they don't know how to use leg drive or how to put pressure correctly, or they're putting pressure in the wrong places. So for the bench press, to be able to build an arch and be stable is to know how to use your feet and how to put pressure. What you want to do is to put pressure on your front foot and you want to basically push through the front foot in the direction your feet are pointing away from you. So basically like this, and you want to hold 70% of the pressure right here, 30% of the pressure right here. If you do this correctly, when you're setting up, you're holding a pressure in your toes, you're setting up your upper back, you want to push in this direction to be able to push yourself back on the bench, and through friction, you can build an arch. So let me show you. You set up your upper back, and then we push it with your feet in this direction, so you can get friction in the opposite direction and build the arch. And this is basically how you maintain your arch for the bench press. And a common mistake people do is that they put too much pressure on their heels and they push into the ground. You want to push into the ground and away from you. If you push too much pressure on your heel, you are running into the issue of lifting your butt off the bench because you are pushing into the ground. So let me show you how it looks like. If you put too much pressure in your feet, when you're pressing, you will lift your butt up, and you also won't be able to engage your glutes and keep them on the bench. So to recap, push through the toes away from you. Don't hold all the pressure in your heel. Hold around 70% in the front and 30% in the heel. So remember to hold that pressure through your whole set, from the beginning of the set until the end when the bar is back on the rack, because if you release that pressure, your whole arch will collapse, you'll get into a bad position and you won't be able to push efficiently. So again, for the bench press, you can play around with your stance, whether that will be narrower or wider. Again, the same thing applies. If you're narrower, you put the feet straight forward. If you're wider, you point the feet slightly outwards. With a more wide stance, you can get a little bit less leg drive, but a more stable leg drive. And if you put the feet narrower, you can push more straight forward. This will also help you put a little bit more leg power into the bench press. This is also personal preference. You can play around with both and see which helps you out. It's also dependent on your mobility. If you don't have good ankle mobility, you might not be able to get into that feet straight position, and you might have to open up your stance a little bit. So play around a little bit with that and see which one feels more natural to you and more stable. And finally, the deadlift. A lot of the same things apply to the deadlift like the squat. You want to have the bar over your midfoot, around there, over the top of the shoelaces, or maybe for some people, they can put the bar a little bit more in the front. What you don't want to do is to put the bar very close to the shins. This will cause you to run into two issues. The first issue is that when you go down, you will push the bar away from you with your shins, and this will bring you out of position. The second thing is that it's too close to the body, and let's say you didn't push the bar. When you are lifting, you'll put the pressure too much on your lower back because the bar is too close to you. So again, right here, you want to build a foot tripod. For the conventional deadlift, like for the squat, you want to have pressure here, here, and here. You want to push your big toe down and bring pressure on the outer part of your foot. And when you're setting up, you also want to bring the knees slightly forward and push the knees slightly against the arms. And in this way, you have the 3-point contact, and you can push through the toes and through the feet. Through this position, you can begin the lift with your legs, and then you can finish the lift with hip extension and lock it out. If you go with too much pressure in your heels, you can see it because your toes might be lifting up during your lift, or you can see it by not engaging your hip hinge as much, and this will cause you to round your lower back and have a dog shit deadlift, like I like to call it. And again, you want to keep even pressure, toe and heel and outer side of your foot. You don't want to go too much on your toes because you lose your balance and fall forward. You don't want to go too much on your heel because you'll put the load on your lower back and you won't be able to hinge correctly. So try to maintain that even pressure. Play around a little bit. You can begin your stance right here, and then you can also try playing around with going slightly further away, not too much, not going like this, because it will become a spine day movement. Start here, maybe put a little bit further away, but that should be enough to do it. So the same exercises apply here, like the squat. You could also try to use a band for this, like the squat. You can try deadlifting with a band around your ankles like this. Find your stance. Usually your stance will be at shoulder width. Bring pressure in your toes, outer part of your feet. Push your knees slightly out against the arms, and from here, try to lift the weight with your legs, putting pressure in your toes, while maintaining contact with the heel. So like this. Don't try to lift the bar with the upper back. Try to lock everything in, push through the toes, and then extend the hips to complete the lift. So that was basically feet when powerlifting and how you can use them to build more stability and have power in your reps and bring your quads more into the movement. These things are also individual because of proportions, strengths, and weaknesses. So you have to play around with this, but building a solid foot tripod and having stability, it should be a universal like cue. And you can play around with maybe slightly more toe pressure, maybe slightly more heel pressure to see which one is best for you. So that was my short take on feet and how you can use your feet to feel more stable doing lifting and maybe unlock your true strength, because everything starts at the feet, even the economy. And once you think more actively about your feet during lifting, you'll feel that you have more control and more power, more stability. So if you want us to review your lift, you can use the link in the description to submit your video, and we'll send you a feedback on how you can improve and we can help you out. That was everything for today. Thank you for watching. Drop 1 million likes. I'll see you on the next one.